A warm welcome to Diplomatic Channel. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week, Israel retaliates Iranian drone strikes launched in retaliation for Israel's strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, killing 13 people on April 1st. Iran launched more than 120 ballistic missiles, 170 drones, and more than 30 cruise missiles. According to the Israeli military, majority of the projectiles were intercepted outside the country's borders with the help from the US, the UK, and France. Now, Jordan also shot down some of the missiles aimed at Israel as they were flying through Jordanian airspace. Israeli allies implored on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to retaliate, but the Prime Minister said Israel would make her own decisions regarding the Iran issue. The US announced a series of sweeping sanctions targeting Iranian leaders and entities tied to Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Tehran's defense ministry, and its missile and drone program. The U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions on 16 individuals and 2 entities that it said enable Iran's UAV production and testing, as well as proliferation to actors that work on behalf of the IRGC. The UK imposed sanctions targeting several Iranian military organizations, individuals, and entities involved in Iran's UAV and ballistic missile industries. However, U.S. officials reported an Israeli missile hit Iran early Friday morning. Blasts were heard in the central province of Isfahan, home to nuclear facilities, a large airbase, and major missile production complex. Israel has not confirmed nor denied responsibility. Iran, however, downplayed an Israeli airstrike near a major airbase and nuclear sites in central Iran. The alleged airstrike hit near an Iranian air defense near the Natanz nuclear site. 2 Iranian officials said the strike hit a Russian-made S-300 air defense system, which had not been detected into its airspace from drones, missiles, or aircraft. Iran is yet to announce the results of its investigation into this incident, and Israel has not commented despite speculation it is behind it. Iranian officials have also tried to downplay the attack, with the senior officials saying there's no plan for retaliation. Israel has long considered Iran to be its greatest enemy, citing the Islamic Republic's call for Israel's destruction, its controversial nuclear program, and its support for hostile proxies across the Middle East. We'll discuss this on the program, as I'll be speaking to international affairs analyst and humanitarian aid manager, Dr. Charles Chukwunaru, on Israel's response and solution to the war in Gaza. But first, a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles, and we'll be right back.
בלילה הזה, 133 אחינו ואחיותינו היקרים אינם מסובים לשולחן הסדר.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will increase military pressure on Palestinian group Hamas in a bid to secure the release of hostages held in Gaza.
כולם הביתה. את החיים ואת החללים כאחד.
Prime Minister Netanyahu said this in a video statement on the eve of the Jewish holiday of Passover, threatening to deliver what he called additional and painful blows. According to him, this is the only way to free Israeli hostages and achieve victory. Despite some international outcry, Mr. Netanyahu has repeatedly said that the army will launch a ground assault on Rafah, a southern Gaza city so far spared an Israeli invasion, where more than 1.5 million Palestinians have taken refuge.
איננו מרפים ולו לרגע.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met with Ismail Haniyeh, the chairman of Hamas political bureau, at Istanbul's Dolmabahce Palace. Both leaders sat for a bilateral dialogue session alongside their respective delegations. According to a statement from the Turkish presidency's communications department, the talks focused on Israel's ongoing military campaign in Gaza. The leaders also discussed methods of delivering uninterrupted humanitarian aid into the besieged enclave, as well as just and sustainable peace process in the region. Hamas is designated as a terrorist organization by several countries and organizations, but Turkey doesn't recognize Hamas as a terrorist group and allows its leaders to travel inside its territory.
Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, The journal stands approved.
The U.S. House of Representatives officially passed a $95 billion aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, as Democrats and Republicans banded together after months of controversy. Prior to the voting session, heated arguments took place as members from Democrats and Republicans voiced their opinions on the passing of the package.
The yeas are 366 and the nays are 58. The bill is passed. Without objection, a motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Conveying his gratitude towards the passing of the bill, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it'll save thousands and thousands of lives, and in his words, help both of our nations to become stronger.
They can save many lives and really change situation.
Welcome back. Israel has eventually responded to Iran's drone attack last week. The Israeli government has not confirmed the attack, but the U.S. government officials believe the blasts were heard in the central province of Isfahan, home to nuclear facilities, a large airbase, and major missile production complex. The conflict with Iran comes as Israel continues its war in the Gaza Strip against Hamas. How does Israel navigate this? And is a two-state solution truly the answer?
Hamas's ideology, or Hamas per se, is an ideology that you cannot eradicate with kinetic action or military action. So, to that extent, Hamas, as a governing institution in Gaza, can be dismantled, and I think that's what Israel wants to do, and that's what they will continue pursuing. But this eradicating the Hamas ideology, it's impossible, because you have members of Hamas scattered all over the world, especially in the Middle East. So I think this the strategy of the Israelis, Bibi Netanyahu, is to destroy the government of Hamas in Gaza, and then destroy its capacity to wage war on the state of Israel.
As a humanitarian worker yourself, Dr. Chukwunaru, how do you feel about the destruction in parts of Gaza, the destruction of infrastructure, especially as a result of the war?
Every man or woman of goodwill or good conscience will be saddened by what is going on in Gaza. In fact, I have friends from Gaza. I don't even know what to tell them. The Palestinians, like I said before, are very good people. What has befallen them is so unfortunate, and this is something that has to stop. Ordinary Palestinians have been pawns in the chessboard of power politics in the Middle East from 1947 up to date. Nobody cares about them, and it hurts me. Israel has a duty. Israel, as an occupying force, has a duty to protect the civilians and their property. And if you look at the number of people who have died, although some of the figures look dubious because they come from Hamas, and Hamas, as a terrorist organization, cannot be trusted. It's still the governing institution in Gaza, and the figures come from them. Even the UN figures, because it's also subject to some scrutiny because they are not on ground. But be that as it may, even if it is one person, but it's not just one. We're talking about thousands dead, displaced. We are talking about famine. We're talking about hungry people. So there is famine right now. People cannot eat. People cannot go to their farms. People cannot access good shelter. They can't go to their houses. There is no food and drug. I'm even afraid of any epidemic, because the next thing you will hear is very serious epidemic or any health hazard that will even kill more than the bullets and the rockets and hunger. So this has to stop. When I look at the whole scenario in Gaza, I question the sincerity of the Arab coalition or Arab consensus. You recall when the UN passed the resolution or draft resolution for the establishment of the state of Israel and Palestine. The Jews, the Israelis accepted it, but the Arabs rejected it on behalf of Palestinians. It wasn't even Palestinians that rejected it. It was the Arabs that rejected it. And they went to war in Israel. They didn't want the state of Israel. Instead of accepting the petitioning, instead of recognizing Israel and Palestine, they went to war. And in the course of the war, Israel took parts of what was originally meant for the Palestinians. And what happened is very, very interesting. The Arab countries that came to fight took the remaining. What Israel took some, Egypt took Gaza, and then Transjordan, as it was called back then, Jordan took East Jerusalem and the West Bank. So, and they did not even declare it state of Palestine. They took it for themselves. And then subsequently relinquished it to Israel in a peace deal and made peace with Israel. Now, the place the Palestinians are begging to be allowed to be called Palestine is just 22%. Out of the 43% Israel that the United Nations gave to them. And they enter Iran. Since 1979, Iran wants to be the dominant power in the Middle East, and they're using poor Palestinians to rally Islamic or Arab consensus to be seen as the major superpower. People are suffering and dying in Iran. There are poor people in, and they are spending billions of dollars every year sponsoring terrorism in Gaza, in Palestine, in Syria, in Yemen, in Iraq. Now back to Gaza. The people, the ordinary Palestinians, are suffering over what they don't know about. These poor citizens, although they made a mistake, because they are tired of fighting, Hamas came with a promise that they are going to do better than the PLO by making them have their own state, bringing peace and all that. And they made a very fatal error in 2006 by electing Hamas, whom they didn't know what they came to do. Hamas is a satellite of the regime in Tehran, and they are just using them to legitimize themselves as a dominant superpower in the Middle East. So right now, when I hear about ending the war, how do you don't just end the war like that? This war is going to last for a very long time. What we are praying is that let there be a ceasefire, but the ceasefire will de-escalate the war situation. War is not just a kinetic war. It's not just fighting. There are different kinds of violence. There is direct physical violence and there is structural violence. What we want in Gaza is for both the direct violence and the structural violence to end. And what I mean by structural violence, the people of Gaza must be given an alternative to Hamas. So Israel wants to eradicate the governance structure of Hamas. What is the alternative to Hamas? That has to be discussed. A government has to be put in place, and Israel will have to encourage the government, do all it can to restore the dignity of Palestinians, to restore their fundamental human rights, to reduce the structural violence, to reduce the injustices they are suffering. These guys are suffering. That is a fact. The men,
Even
women,
before
and
the
children
war,
in Gaza
yeah.
are suffering. Schools have been destroyed. Hospitals have been destroyed. Their sources of livelihood have been destroyed. Businesses have been destroyed. Farmlands have been destroyed. Animals have been destroyed. How will these guys survive? Hamas has to go. A new government has to come in place. This has to be discussed. Israel has to help. The dignity of Palestinians, the Gazans, has to be restored. There must be peace.
Stay tuned. My conversation with Dr. Chukwunaru continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back, and let's get back now to the concluding part of my interview with Dr. Charles Chukwunaru on Israel's war in Gaza. I'm sure you know that there are many complications and complexities regarding the politics in Gaza and Iran's role in this, because Iran is one of the financiers of the Hamas militants in Gaza. But the UN Security Council, and I'm glad you raised the issue of statehood, because the UN Security Council held a vote on recognizing Palestine as a state. It was vetoed by the United States on behalf of Israel, because Israel is not a member of the UN Security Council. Pro-Palestinian protesters across the world have been calling for the state of Palestine. But this is the other part that we don't know, the other part that is not highlighted. It's the fact that many of them also support Hamas, because somehow they think that Hamas is the roadmap, has the roadmap to Palestinian statehood, just like, for Israel, it was the Zionists who eventually, helped with, Israel attaining statehood. What do you say to groups like this? Because I'm not sure that people really understand, what they're asking for. Those who are protesting for Palestine and asking that Palestine be recognized as a state. What would that look like for the Middle East? What would that look like for Israel?
Well, I remember back in 2005, 2006, in my international relations class in London, we had a seminar, and some people argued that Israel was sponsoring Hamas against PLO, and that some people also argued that Bibi Netanyahu was a sponsor of Hamas, because then the dominant power in Palestine was PLO, led by late Arafat, and that Israel was sponsoring Hamas to weaken the PLO. And today, Hamas can be clearly seen as the biggest obstacle to peace. Because if there were to be a resuscitation of the Oslo Agreement, if there were to be any resuscitation of the two-state, talk about two-state solution, the Hamas's attack on Israel on the 7th of October have killed that completely, right, as it is right now. Israel will not allow it. The US, France, and Britain will veto it. It's not going to happen right now. And the people who are protesting don't really understand the issues. Because if they understand the issues, they should be protesting against Hamas. PLO was doing well under PLO was doing well, because PLO, this resistance, PLO was in forefront of this resistance, and they have fought, they have done everything by force, and they realize that these things cannot be achieved by force. They went to the Oslo Accord, and they kind of recognized Israel, because they said, but Hamas came saying they don't recognize Israel, although recently they are saying they recognize Israel. I don't know how that will pan out with people like Iran, who had vowed to eradicate Israel from the surface of the earth, being their chief sponsor. So the talk of two-state solution, I believe right now, it's being championed by those who know that it's impossible, but as an escapist route, as a pacifist route, as a olive branch, just to evade the truth, keep giving the Palestinians hope, and just like putting a window dressing to an injury that requires a surgical operation. The two-state solution is impossible right now. And what the people of Palestine need right now is not just statehood. They need peace. The statehood is not an end in itself. What the people need is the restoration of their dignity of human person, is the restoration of their fundamental human rights, is the restoration of their right to property, is the restoration of their right to life, is the restoration of their right to a good livelihood. And all this can only be possible with peace if they make peace with the Israelis. Statehood can come in the future. For me, what I think is possible if they truly want peace. By the way, you know, an Israeli can drive into Egypt right now, drive across the border, identify himself as an Israeli, they will let him in. But the Palestinian cannot do that. A Palestinian cannot just cross into Egypt. But an Israeli can do it. Most of the Arab countries have peace with Israel. Why are they playing politics with Palestinians?
So if I'm hearing you
Why can't
correctly,
Israel, sorry?
sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to get this in. If I'm hearing you correctly, the problem is not just Palestinian statehood, is a Palestine under Hamas. That's the real problem here, right?
That is number one. A Palestine under Hamas is not possible right now. A Palestinian state is not possible right now. What is possible, what they should do first is to make peace with the people. The ordinary people of Palestine and the ordinary Israelis should have peace. These are cousins, these are half brothers and sisters. They are the same people. I've worked with Israelis, I've worked with Palestine. If you see these people, you can't even tell the difference. They're just playing politics with the lives of people. What they need is to make peace. Peace contractors should be on ground right now, engaging in confidence building measures, promoting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. Let these people live in peace. What is most important to the ordinary Palestinian in Palestine right now is peace, is food, is clothing, is shelter, is employment, is freedom of movement, is education, is good health facilities, not what Hamas is doing. Then when there is peace between these two entities, between the Israelis will have confidence that a Palestinian state will not be a threat to the survival of Israel, then there can be a referendum. You may even be surprised if there is peace. Do you know how many people from Palestinian territories that are working in Israel? Israel is the biggest provider of employment to Palestinians, both in the occupied West Bank, East Jerusalem, especially Ramallah, Gaza, all over the place. You know how many, since this war started, do you know what they have lost? People cannot go, Palestinians who need to go to work in Israel to earn money don't go to work anymore. And there's no employment back where they come from. I can assure you that there is a very big possibility that if you remove all this Arab and take religion and ethnicism out of the table, there will be peace.
And we'll leave it at
No,
that.
this is promoted by religious bigots and ethnic. If you listen to me, I can assure you that if there is peace between Palestinians and they have a good life, if you conduct a referendum, most of them may want to remain with Israel as one state. What makes you think it's not possible? You're only hearing the voice of politicians and people who are rioting and demonstrating here and there, who don't even understand the issues. People who don't understand that Palestinians can't cross over, cannot go to Egypt, but an Israeli can go and do that. And you're talking about Arab consensus.
Dr. Charles Chukwunaru, I do understand why you're getting heated up, about this. This conversation, of course, continues at a later date. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you on Diplomatic Channel. Thank you for stopping by. We hope to have you again to discuss this and possibly other issues. Thank you so
Sorry,
much.
I became emotional because as a humanitarian, I don't like the carnage that is going on there. I
I
don't like the
understood that.
killings.
Yeah.
These are real human beings. This is not a movie. This is even worse than a movie. The killings has to stop.
Yeah.
The Palestinians need peace. Thank you very much. And I want to make an appeal to the Arab world. Please stop playing politics with the lives of ordinary Palestinians. Allow them to make peace with their brothers in Israel and live in peace. Thank you very much.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you. This is where we end the program. I'm glad you could join us. Don't forget you can reach me using any of the addresses showing on your screen. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.